What's up, listeners? This is Ef'n and I got Chris Rodriguez with me. Chris Rodriguez, what's up, man?
What is going on, dude? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Now, do you remember when we were growing up, there was a book called Stories That Must Not Die?
Yes, of course.
And did you enjoy that book?
That's the only book that I ever checked out from the library.
Now, this book contained like the local folklore stories of the Rio Grande Valley and South Texas. It was like the South Texas Stranger Things / Are You Afraid of the Dark type book that you would read it and you would just like get like kind of scared because it had the stories like La Llorona.
La Llorona, yeah.
The Headless Bandit, all these really neat stories. And the book was written by Juan Savageau.
Sauvageau. Yes.
And unfortunately, Juan Savageau passed away recently, but we were able to get a hold of his son, Roger.
All right, right on.
And what's so fascinating is when you read the book, Stories That Must Not Die, you flip over 2 pages, and that book is dedicated to Roger.
Mm-hmm.
So after a bunch of Facebook messaging trying to find Roger, we finally did, and Roger is with us today. How are you doing, Roger?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, Roger, can you tell us a little bit about the backstory on how your dad created this book?
Well, obviously I was a very small kid when he created the book. All I know is that he traveled all over South Texas and in Mexico and just went to all the little villages and little towns and just kind of collected these fascinating stories and just put them together. He thought it was the greatest thing ever.
And what was your dad's background in storytelling?
Well, I mean, I don't know what about his background in storytelling per se, but he was a very educated man, and he was in love with the Latin-based languages. So he decided to write these bilingual and actually some trilingual books. I guess just to get that love of languages out there.
Did your dad ever tell you any of these stories as a child?
Oh, yes. I remember quite a few nights being terrified to go to sleep. But you know what? That's beside the. He also had some great, fun stories as well.
When you read all these stories that your dad wrote, you get on Amazon and stuff, and your dad's books are all there, and his stories that must not die. But there really isn't anything about your father's life that he wrote or that he published. And
I wish he would have. He did some really cool stuff.
And what was your dad's background?
He's actually French Canadian. He was born in 1917 in Lévis, Quebec. And then he traveled all over. He went to school at Tulane and at Purdue. And somehow or another, he ended up traveling all over Mexico and ended up in Texas. He was a professor at Texas A&I.
Did you tell me that your dad spent some time as a priest?
He did, yes. Yeah, he sure did. He was a priest in South Texas and I wish I knew more times, but all I know is I have some pictures of him, and he was a priest for a while, and then he ended up teaching at a private college there in San Antonio, and then I don't know what happened, but anyway, he dropped out of the priesthood and ended up just as a professor at like I said, in Kingsville at A&I, and then he's gone all over the world. I mean, literally, I've seen pictures of him all over the place, and I don't even know where all these places are. I was just like, hey, that place looks famous, and there he is standing in front of it. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I know that he spent a year while I was in high school. He spent a year over in France teaching. In Po, France, wherever that is. But so I mean, the guy's just all about teaching people stuff, which was really
wow.
Cool.
That is awesome, though. That is
yeah. I mean, to take that much time and write these books, and there were some students when we were growing up that didn't speak any English whatsoever. So that translated version of your dad's book was kind of used to introduce them to the English language.
Absolutely, yeah. ESL. He was very he was really about ESL. I mean, he was he would do anything he could, you know. He's just that was just the type of man he was, you know. He would help. That actually, I'm glad you said that, because that brings up something else. That so up here in the Treasure Valley, which is the Boise area, he was also a translator, right? So he would go into court and he would help. He was a translator for that, for multiple languages. And then he helped build. So up here we have a big reservoir called Lucky Peak, okay, and it's a big reservoir. Anyway, the dam was needing to be rebuilt. So a guy came up from Brazil. The main engineer was from Brazil, and he spoke zero English. So of course they called on my dad, and my dad helped build this diversion dam.
And Roger, what was your favorite story?
Okay, mine's a little strange. Well, it's not strange, but it's The Devil Takes a Bride. And the reason why, and you would have to have the book in front of you to see it, but the illustration of the devil in that story is my dad's face. Whoa. And it's just one that I remember. It just gets me, because every time I see it, it's like, that's my dad. It's pretty cool.
And Roger, in trying to find the book Stories That Must Not Die, I mean, there's a bunch of paperback ones that you could find, but the original hardback copies, those things are like extremely rare, right, Chris?
Very rare, very expensive too.
They are. If you know where to get them, you can get them now. And in fact, I have one of his other books here. So this is another one that he did, right. Fables and poems. I'm trying to find the camera here. Oh, there you go. Anyway, on the back of it, it's the same publisher that does the Stories That Must Not Die, and it's actually, these are all educational books. So you find them through the National Educational Systems in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, I've been after your dad's books for a while, and I have a friend of mine who's a local tattoo artist, and he's really big into horror and stuff like that, and he was very lucky to find a copy of your dad's book of Scary Stories That Must Not Die at a flea market at a swap meet.
Oh, wow.
He put it up on Facebook, and he was getting offers left and right from everybody trying to buy it. He's like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It was just really, really cool to actually see somebody actually have a hard copy. I mean, last time I saw one was
well, that's interesting.
I was a kid.
So the main people that purchased the books, of course, were the school systems. Mm-hmm. And my dad was very generous. He wasn't the type of person to take anything from anybody. And basically, after they sold the books to all the school systems, they stopped buying them because they were just making photocopies and handing them out to the students, right? Like today we're doing this story, blah blah, and they hand those out. So instead of them repurchasing, they've just got piles of photocopies of
That's
all
terrible.
the stories.
That's terrible.
But at the same time, it would make my dad very happy. He didn't do this for money. He just loved to get these stories out. Plus, I have a story, since you mentioned the local tattoo artist.
That's amazing.
I don't know if you can see him, but this is that. Let's see, there we go. See the sword?
I see the sword.
Whoa, that is cool.
And the band. That's all on the books. And I don't know if you know any of the other books, but this is the Fables Are Forever cover.
That is awesome.
All of this.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah, that's on that side. And then this side is the book I just showed you, which was this one.
The Stories and Fables. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Now, Roger, can you tell us, what does the sword mean on the front of the book? Because as kids, we were always trying to figure out, what does that sword mean? Is there a special meaning to it?
I hate to disappoint you. I don't know.
Oh, man.
It just looks super cool.
It is super cool. I don't know what it means, though. Maybe it's a symbolism of something that lasts over time. I just don't know, honestly.
Your father's work is nostalgic, like for us. It is a cult classics, like that's what it is. It's that important to the culture, our culture. I've always said it that the RGV here in the Lower Rio Grande Valley, we have our own culture. It's very different from everybody else's, and that book resonates strongly with our culture.
I feel like I should give you a little of my background as well, because my mother is Mexican. Okay.
Right on.
Our whole family on my mom's side is from the Monterey area.
Okay.
So we're, so I'm half and half.
Yeah.
And so I've always loved these stories, and learning about that. And my own kids are just, they're fascinated by them as well. They just can't get enough of the Mexican culture. And it's nice to have, for other people to get them in their hands too, and kind of understand how, the storytelling and the fables and all the different, just all the different things that the Mexican culture learned through stories. It's just amazing.
And I think what made some of these stories so scary is because, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who will bet and put their hand like on a Bible and say these stories are real. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it
for
happened to someone I know.
For sure, yeah, and that's he spent. And I wish I had an exact time, but man, he spent years and years collecting these stories. It wasn't just I'm gonna grab a handful of things I've heard and write about them. He literally went to all these little pueblas and little towns, and he asked everybody, talked to everybody. He got hundreds of versions of the same stories, and then he just kind of combined everything together to the one story that made sense through all of them that he heard. And that's kind of how all this came about.
That's awesome. It was like 100% like the love of trying to find something. Like it was. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Was there any story that your dad ever shared with you that was his favorite story?
His favorite story is not in the Stories That Must Not Die. It's in Fables Are Forever, and it was The Little Naked Bird. So in a nutshell, I will tell you, it was about a little bird that it was...
Oh, thank goodness, Roger. Like I didn't want to be rude. I was like, I want to know the story without having to...
I'll tell you the story.
Oh, awesome.
So basically, it's about a little bird that had no plumage. Okay, and all of the other birds felt bad for this bird, and so they all gave him one of their feathers. And anyway, it became the most beautiful bird of all the birds, and it resembled a peacock. Okay, so it was just very gorgeous. Anyway, but then the bird, if I remember right, and it's been a while since I've read it, but the bird became very arrogant because he was the most beautiful of all the birds. Okay, so anyway, all the rest of the birds decided that they didn't want anything to do with him, and I believe the bird went extinct. So it's kind of, one of those, it has a meaning behind, of course.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that sums up the way that Chris acts. Very arrogant and...
Shut up.
I think, Roger, thank you for coming on. That probably good life lesson for you, Chris.
Thank you, man.
I mean, if I had to suggest another book too, I mean, that Fables are Forever is another good one, and they all came also from the Rio Grande Valley, from Mexico. These were all stories the same that were basically gotten the same way, by asking about all these different people and stuff about them. The difference is they aren't scary. So he had all his spooky stuff in one book, and all his really lighthearted, good feeling kind of stories with real meaning behind them in other books.
Your dad's name on the books, his first name is Juan, right?
Sure.
But that wasn't his original name, right?
No, it's John. But when I travel to Mexico, I go by Rogelio. So it's easier for the Spanish-speaking people to kind of connect with him, I would say.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
I dig it. I really dig it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did your dad have any experience any problems putting the book together, or getting it out there?
No, I don't believe so. He actually, the first time he put it out to a publisher that did not just do educational stuff. It was an actual publisher, and they did a really good job of getting it out there. And then when he found the school niche, that's what he went with, was that other publisher that could get it into all the schools across the country, basically. So that's kind of where the direction he went. He just wanted, he just loved language. My dad spoke 11 languages, so
Wow.
Most of
Whoa.
them Latin based. I mean, he's taught multiple languages in college. You know, he was at one point the oldest. How was that? The oldest working professor in the country at Boise State University. I want to say he was 89 at the time, and he was still teaching classes. It's pretty
Wow.
crazy.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
That's amazing.
That
That's
is
awesome.
amazing.
Wow.
And we don't want to put you like on the spot or anything like that, Roger. But have you written anything, or have you? I just like Roger's already looking at you like you little asking me that question.
No, but I will tell you that once my dad got sick, and I'll just let you know. I mean, he had pancreatic cancer. Okay, so you know how that takes over very, very quickly. He was 94 when he passed away, and I'm not kidding. I think he'd still be alive right now if he didn't have that cancer. He was in such great health. He was amazing. The guy was an amazing man. And he had all his marbles still when he passed away. Once he got sick and he was having a hard time typing and stuff, he asked me to help, and I would take notes. He just, to the day he passed away, he was still putting ideas of stories and books and stuff out. I have a stack of papers just with all these random thoughts on it, and it's pretty interesting. And in fact, and I have the very first volume of Stories That Must Not Die, with all his handwritten notes in it of things he's going to change in it.
Oh wow.
Which is pretty cool.
So he was a storyteller, like to the very end.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And it wasn't just short stories. I mean, you know, he also has 2 novels out there which you should totally read. They're pretty great. One of them is called In Spite of the River, and it's also Mexico and Texas based story, and it's I mean, the title kind of tells you you know what it's about. And then another one is called Yolanda and the General. It's not a true story by any means. It is, and it's about the old time Mexican mafia and how they got involved with the politics of the country and all this stuff. And it's really good. And that one, that is that one's a great. I love it. I love it.
Definitely got to check those
I have
out.
a little bit to do with it because when I read the first copy of it that he wrote, I hated the ending. I thought it was horrible. And so he rewrote it.
Nice. So do you think maybe eventually you'll put something together, you know, like the memoirs of, you know, something like that?
Oh man, I don't know. I just don't think I'd do it justice, first of all. And that isn't in my Rolodex. I am not a writer or storyteller. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Right on.
I don't know where it went, but it did not go to me.
I just think it'd definitely be something that I know a lot of people would be interested, especially here, like I said, here in the Valley, man.
Right.
That your father was.
I mean, I'd like to do something, you know, with, you know, his publications that he already has done, obviously. That would be great. I mean, I'd love to try to get that out there again. But as far as doing something new, I don't have the creative mind.
And one of the criticisms of your dad's material is that it's so like voluminous that there's not just one book you can get, right? Is there any thoughts about putting like everything together in like one volume set or anything?
I mean, that seems like a good. That might not be something that's so bad, but I mean, it's going to be the size of the Bible.
Hey, that's cool. I got books that thick. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
But the other thing though is the subject matter in all of them are so different that it just wouldn't jive. You know,
okay.
I don't think. You know, Stories That Must Not Die are spooky, scary. You know, and then Fables of Forever are fun-loving and sweet. You know. And then these other ones are poems.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So I get it. Your dad purposefully like did that to have those stories just carry that same theme.
I believe so.
And not mix them up. That makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And you know, before Netflix and Stranger Things and all these other shows, that book, like we would read and we'd be scared like crapless. Yeah. Have there been any thoughts of like making a movie or any type of like script?
I mean, there was an individual that contacted me from I want to say from, I don't know. Well, he was in South Texas, and he was talking about putting together a Netflix series. But I haven't heard back, and it's been about, I'll bet you it's almost a year now. So I don't know if,
Oh man.
if that's actually going to happen.
Well,
or
if
not.
he's watching this, you need to contact Roger. And you need to get going on that script because
ASAP.
I mean, there's good material there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those are our stories.
Yeah,
There isn't.
I think it would be a great series of
Absolutely.
just simple stories they could really do something. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a 30, 40-year-old here in the Valley that hasn't
read that book. And I think, Roger, you've what's that feeling like when you go to like a library or someplace and you see a kid like reading your dad's book or checking it out?
It's pretty neat. I went to a school. It was a year or two ago now, and I was doing some work in their IT room, and the IT room happened to be next to the library. And I walked through the library, and the return cart was sitting there, and a copy of my dad's book was sitting right there on top being returned. So somebody here in Idaho had checked it out, and it was pretty neat. So I just kind of snuck over there and I opened the front of it to see how many times it had been checked out, and the sticker that they stamp had been covered over a number of times. It was really neat. It was neat to see.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That was a hot book when we were growing up. Like you would have to wait a month in order to get into that rotation for you to get that book.
It was a nickel a day if you kept it for more than you were supposed to. And I'm telling you this because I paid those nickels because I never wanted to give it back. It's crazy.
That is nuts. And what has been the reaction of your like non-friends from South Texas when they read your dad's book or they read like these stories?
Most of the time when I hear of somebody saying something, it is exactly what you guys are saying. This was a huge part of my life as a kid growing up, which to me is it's amazing to hear that. There was a guy on Instagram that he does like scary story shorts, and he had one on there, and he said the same thing. This is a story from Books That Must Not Die is one of the, or Stories That Must Not Die, one of the premier reads of Mexican American childhood, and which was really cool. And then there's some people on YouTube that do some there's one in particular that does a really good job, and they do little animated stuff with the stories, and it's pretty cool. But basically, yeah, I get the same thing from everybody, that grew up down there mostly,
Wow.
Well, I think that if you do decide to put something together and release it, I have a comic book shop here in the Valley, and if you have a book signing or have you over, visit.
Man, that'd be so cool.
It would be awesome.
That would be so cool.
How about this? How about you guys help me out with this, and we'll get her done.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because
I'd be honored. Just.
Honestly, you guys probably have a lot more contacts down there than I do, and you probably could. Yeah, you guys, I'm sure you could help me out because I'm kind of way up here, way up north, where we don't have a lot of.
Roger,
stuff,
no.
But the interest.
Roger, the one thing you know, buddy, is once you're from the RGV, you're always from the RGV.
That's true.
Roger, man, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed this, and your dad is really an icon down here in the RGV. And thank you for expanding on a little bit about the mystery behind Juan.
No. You better keep that in. Don't edit that out.
Juan Savageau.
Sauvageau. No? Oh, no.
Sauvageau.
Was it?
Sauvageau.
Sauvageau.
Okay.
You better leave that in. Yeah, I'm just saying, you're going to leave that in.